Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to another week and a Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Going to be a good one. Got a big win to talk about from the Winnipeg Jets on the weekend. A look ahead to tomorrow where the team finishes this quick 3-game road trip in St. Louis. And of course, the stage is set for next Saturday, 5:30 IG Field. It will be the British Columbia Lions coming to Winnipeg to take on the Bombers to see who will represent the West Division in the Grey Cup in Hamilton. It's going to be a huge week on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and man, that Saturday is going to be incredible. Jets, Dallas, 2 p.m. downtown. Bombers, Lions, 5:30 at IG Field. All roads lead to the Peg for a big Saturday of sports, and of course, a huge game when it comes to the Canadian Football League and the amazing season that the Bombers have had. We're going to have a real fun show today. We will hear from Coach Arneal, Mason Appleton, Brendan Dillon on the big game on the weekend. And we're going to have John Shannon come on. John, of course, a longtime producer of Hockey Night in Canada, panelist on HNIC and Rogers Sportsnet, and of course, a very frequent contributor to Winnipeg Jets hockey on 680 CJOB. Really looking forward to having John jump on with us, talk a little Jets, as well as some of the big stories going around the National Hockey League as we get into the month of November. And then Jeff Hamilton's going to jump on for his Monday visit. We'll get his thoughts on the Jets for sure, but kind of dive in a little bit more to this matchup between Winnipeg and BC as the Bombers are practicing all week, getting ready to host the team on at 5:30 on Saturday, as I just mentioned. Welcome to everybody in chat. Shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. And by the way, folks, if you haven't listened or viewed it already, a new edition of Jets Weekly dropped this morning here on Winnipeg Sports Talk with Connor Hrabchak. Make sure to check that out. Connor does a great job of kind of recapping the week and giving a look ahead to the week for the Winnipeg Jets, which is a huge one, as we kind of talked about on Friday. All games head-to-head inside the Central Division. St. Louis Tuesday, Nashville Thursday here in Winnipeg, and that Saturday matinee before the Bombers and Lions against the Dallas Stars. So check that out on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. After you check out Winnipeg Sports Talk today. And if you're a podcast listener, it'll be there for you. Make sure to give it a listen. All right, just before we bring in Michael Remis, big thanks to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, the Winnipeg Jets, Aquatech, Modern Man, and of course we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. All right, let's get this going. Michael Remis, how was your weekend?
Yeah, great weekend. I don't know, NFL yesterday, a little Jets game in the afternoon. I got on the ice myself, so happy to be back on a Monday. And this is a busy time, Huss, with the Jets returning up for a homestand, and also the CFL West final finally set here, so feeling good.
How are you feeling physically? You mentioned that you were on the ice. Did also see you take a couple bumps in a wrestling ring on Saturday night. But any extra wear and tear after your time in the squared circle?
Yeah, I'll throw the picture. Show it to my friend Benji Rothman, local comedian here in Winnipeg, had his wrestling wedding social, and here's a picture you took of me in the ring. This is a dream come true, Huss. I've never done that before. Go up on the ropes like that. So, but the ring, like you're at a social, and the dance floor is a wrestling ring, and of course had to go in and take a couple bumps. Not gonna lie, I was a bit sore yesterday. Not as sore as one of my friends who I was tussling with, who was wearing improper footwear and severely rolled his ankles. So gotta be careful. Gotta be careful. But I'm feeling good. You tweeted out the picture. We're posting it for all the podcast listeners, but a little sore, huh?
Yeah. If you're listening on the podcast, you can just go to my my Twitter feed from Saturday night, and you'll see you'll see this picture. And I mean, as funny as that picture is, nothing was more ridiculous. At one point, I was talking to a couple guys. I look into the ring, and Remis is there talking to someone, and then just out of the blue, just basically does the jump onto his back. Just kind of feeling the ring, you know?
That's what they teach you in wrestling school. You got to know how to fall. And, you know, you tried going up against the ropes and, like, running across the ring. Lot harder than it looks. I got a thing or two to learn here.
I will say this. It was a great crowd. Got to see Shauna Soar and obviously Benj and the whole thing. It was probably the most bizarre social that I've ever been to, though. Like, if it actually was a social. Like, you get there, they had a couple matches early on.
Yeah.
And then they had the band playing. Yeah. And the entire ring was full of people dancing. Tons of people in wrestling costumes.
Yes.
So it was one of the... It was a scene, folks. It was a scene. However, I have to mention, by far the most bizarre thing, and I've never seen this before in my life, the bar closed before 11. Was there like a tight timeline? Did they have to get everybody out because there was like a show later on at the West End Cultural Center at like midnight or something?
I heard they had a hard out at midnight, so it was shutting down at 11. That's all we know.
Everyone has kids. Everyone has kids. They just don't have the the gas in the tank that they did before, I guess.
I mean, I was happy that it ended early went home, and so.
Anyways, that was a good time, and seeing you, I'm just so glad that I was there, able to snap that photo at the right time. It got a lot of love on social media. All right, listen, we're going to spend a lot of time getting into the Jets, and we will do so with John Shannon coming up right away. But we, as we mentioned right off the top, Remo, we now know who the Bombers' opponent is going to be on Saturday for the West Final. The British Columbia Lions, VA looked ready to go for playoffs. That was a very, very impressive performance by BC. And it sets up a matchup that I think we've all thought was coming for the better part of the last 3 months. Winnipeg and BC, to see who the beasts of the West are and who will be representing the Western Division in Hamilton. This entire week is going to be fun getting ready for it. But this is the matchup I think we deserve to get. And, the Bombers will be ready, but BC certainly looked like they were ready with the way they performed against Calgary.
Yeah, and we've kind of been waiting for this forever. Like, since, that's why that game, in BC a couple of weeks ago was so huge, because the winner would get the home field advantage. And we know it's big for the Bombers. Relish playing in this weather. I guess we'll be watching the weather all week here. But a bit nice win for BC. It's funny, I'm watching their game against Calgary, and they show the records to start, and they're like, yeah, BC, what are they, like 10-5, and Calgary 6-12? And I'm like, what league is this where a team is 6-12 and in the playoffs? But credit, Calgary gave them a run before. Sorry, BC was 12-6. Calgary 6-12, and good for BC. I mean, they're a good team. Vernon Adams, when he's on, he's among the best, but you can definitely force him into making mistakes. And I'm looking forward to this rematch. The Bombers have, win 2-1. They had the one that they lost, but really smoked them. But put the 50. I mean, Vernon Adams wasn't in for that second one, but the third one was the game of the season, maybe the game of like the last 5 to 10 seasons. And how are they going to follow this up?
Well, they're going to follow it up with a winner take all. It's almost like you have those incredible matchups. That was the soft. That third game, the key was hosting this game and not having to play this week, and the Bombers earned that. But that's all in the rearview now. And you got the BC Lions coming in, feeling, I would imagine, pretty darn good about themselves, and knowing what their challenge is, and that is to to come into Winnipeg and upset the Bombers, where they've been so dominant for so long. They do realize that it can be done. They did it earlier in this season, but as we've said, for the last number of months, winning in Winnipeg and IG Field on the road in November, a little bit different than doing it in early July, which is what happened early on. As far as the forecast goes for the game, I see some people talking about it right now. And again, this is all subject to change. But the 14-day forecast, let's just fire up the Weather Network app here. It's pretty much the same thing every day, like a high of 0 or 1. Right now it says, Saturday's high is 0, low of -4. My big concern is what the wind is going to be like, because as we all know, that can be the real game changer. And even with this high of 0, let's also remember that this game is going to start at 5:30. With the daylight savings and everything, I believe it'll be dark already by then. So I don't think that we're going to be up around the daily high when things kick off, and I'm sure the Bombers are quite fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, whatever the temperature is, Mike O'Shea is going to say it's perfect football weather, and they are not cold at all. I mean, a couple storylines to watch for the Bombers has, Dalton Schoen, he's been out with an injury. I don't know if we should be expecting him to play, and Rashid Bailey left their last game, and I have to see what the updates are. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure. But those are probably the big things. But we've been kind of waiting for Janarian Grant. He returned from injury, but yeah, I mean this is what we got with the Bombers. So we'll be tuned into the practice updates all week.
Yeah, we'll get to the bottom of that coming up with Jeff Hamilton a little bit later on today. As I say, we'll save some of our Jets audio in a conversation coming on an Arizona win for after John Shannon joins us. And we'll talk some NFL. Wild day in the National Football League yesterday. Started early with the Chiefs and Dolphins over in Frankfurt. Ended late in the Natty with that big Bengals win over the Bills. So we will talk all about that. But Remo, before we just to sort of tee up our conversation on the Jets with John Shannon, a very interesting game in Arizona on Saturday. And once again, the Jets now 7 straight against the Coyotes. But they did it in a very weird way. They gave up an early goal. I believe they only had 3 shots in the first period. And it looked like it got even worse. Well, it did get worse in the second period when Mark Scheifele served up probably the free pizza of the year. Sort of fanned on a pass that was destined to go a lot further than it ended up, hitting a Coyote right in front of the net and depositing it behind Connor Hellebuck. But we always talk about the words pushback from Rick Bowness. Once again, it was the Adam Lowry line leading that pushback, an absolutely beautiful 4-way passing play with Lowry, Appleton, Morrissey, and Nino Niederreiter being involved. And that first goal by Niederreiter, I think, really got the Jets going. Brendan Dillon popped one in, and then Niederreiter and Dillon did it again. And then at one point, the 5th goal that went in, no one was sure whether it was Dillon, whether it was Lowry, or whether it was Nino Niederreiter. It ended up being the Swiss Superman. And Nino and Brendan Dillon combined for 5 goals between them. Dillon with 2 goals and an assist. And there was no surprise who was getting the jackets after that big win for the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday.
Yeah, that was a big one. A bit of a disappointing performance result there in Vegas. But I think the Jets have their 5-on-5 game has been consistent all year. And we talked a lot about special teams last week. Well, the special teams battle was even at 1-1 and down 0-2 with Mark Scheifele on the ice for 2 goals against, part of the back check on that odd man rush for the first one. As you said, the freest of free pizzas for the second one. Tried to put a bit more on that one to get the pass through the middle to Kyle Connor and, just whiffed on it. Who is it? O'Brien put that one in, and you're like, oh no, what's going on here? But credit to them for battling, and this, third, we're gonna call it the third line test, but you could argue there maybe been the Jets' top line of Niederreiter, Appleton, and Lowry went to work. Niederreiter using his big body in front on the first one, on the second one as well. Ehlers on the power play with a nice tip, and Brendan Dillon. Who knew what kind of cannon he had us on that first one. I was like, what the heck's Brendan Dillon doing in the high slot there?
Doing in the slot? Exactly.
What a pass from Nemestikov. I guess he found a hole and Nemestikov found him, and then with an absolute rocket there for the second one, and then Nino's third one, Dillon just put it on goal, bounced around, and Nino tapped in. I was listening to Kenny and Rennie, and Ken was like, what's the combined distance on those Nino goals? Like under 5 feet. But I mean, he's the kind of guy that the team needed. I mean, we talked about what a great addition it was, and that line has been fantastic. I'll go on here. Mike Kelly putting out
pull
the
up,
stats.
Pull up that chart from Mike Kelly. I mean, which tells you all you need to know about just how dominant Adam Lowry's line has been so far this season.
Here, Lowry at 5-on-5, 8 goals for, 8 goals for, 1 against, 19 cycle chances for, 3 against, expected goals, 76.9% of the expected goals to 23%. So they are significantly outpossessing, outplaying, outcycling their opponents, and you saw that in full effect on Saturday. And it's amazing as you look at the Jets' scoring leaders right now. I mean, you have the usual Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. I mean, that's not a surprise that they're up there. But 9 points here as I pull it up. I know Mason Appleton, Nino is in there, Adam Lowry just before, Cole Perfetti. Here we go. Kyle Connor 9, Nino 9. Nino got off to the slow start that series with 5 goals, 1 off the team lead. Mark Scheifele with 9. Oh, there's Mason Appleton. He's got 9 points, 3 goals, 6 assists.
Appleton's been unreal this season. And I mean, and listen, we've talked a lot about the depth of this club.
Yep.
Look no further than the scoring. I mean, 7 players within 1 point of the scoring lead. And listen, would you like a little bit more to Scheifele and Connor lately? Absolutely. But holy smokes, is the Lowry line doing well. And I think, Cole Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers continues to sort of get in his groove a little bit more. But I think it's been evidently clear, and I'm looking forward to hearing what John Shannon has to say about just how good that Lowry line has been. And I believe it was Money Puck or one of the fancy stats sites, we're comparing lines for the year. And right now, the Lowry line, I believe, is 4th in the National Hockey League over the course of this season. And if that can continue, that is a very, very good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. As I mentioned, really looking forward to having John Shannon jump on with us. Just before we do that, shout out to our Movember team. The stashes are coming in. We'll get a little update from some of the fellas later on this week as we continue to raise money and awareness for men's health as part of the Movember movement, along with our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. If you are growing a mo, if you snap a picture of it in front of one of the Modern Mans and throw it on Instagram and tag them, you'll be entered to win some great prizes from our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. And whether it's for the initial shave or to take it off at the end, Modern Man is conveniently located 8 locations in Winnipeg, newest locations on Pembina Highway and Plessis Road. And they've got haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. You can book your look via modernmanbarber.com and make an appointment. And if you look right there, just hit that promo code if you do want to make a donation to the cause. We've had a great start so far, but certainly can handle more as we try and hit our goal of $2,000 for the movement. And a big shout out to all of our team that continues to grow those stashes. Listen, we know it's not pool weather right now. We're going to be talking about outdoorsy stuff with that big football game on the weekend. But I know we're not, if you're looking to take the plunge next year, Aquatech are the pool experts. What you might not know is that whole home renovations start with Aquatech. With thousands of rentals as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, your bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And with the cold weather here and it getting a lot colder around the corner, make sure you are prepared for winter. And that is going to start with a stop off over at Manitoba Battery. Of course, Manitoba Battery can test your battery to make sure that you're set up for the winter. And if you need one, you'll be getting the best prices in town, shopping local and beating the pants off the big box stores. And of course, the winter ready sale is on right now. $10 off all automotive batteries on their already incredibly low prices. And hey, the best thing about Manitoba Battery is that they'll deliver it to you as well for free with any purchase over $60. It's that easy. Order and find out more at manitobabattery.com. Give them a call at 783-8787 if you'd like to talk to someone. Donnie and his staff would love to help you out. And again, if you want to pop in for a test or see them in person, Manitoba Battery's at 1026 Logan Avenue. And hey, that was the big release of the premium spirits at Manitoba Liquor Marts happened on the weekend. I hope you got a chance to grab some of that Canadian Club Invitation Series, the 15-year-old sherry cask, which is out for $79.99 for a limited one-time release. An amazing gift if you're thinking about that whiskey lover in the fam. But get on it right now because, as I say, limited time and limited quantities for the 15-year-old sherry cask. And whether you're doing the sherry cask or a CC and ginger or grabbing one at the Rum Hut, you know that our friends at Canadian Club are ready for Saturday because they, of course, are the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I know Bomber fans will be keeping themselves warm on Saturday afternoon with a few CCs or the very popular CC and ginger in cans. You can pick up the Canadian Club family at your local Manitoba Liquor Marts, CC and gingers at your local beer store as well. And remember, folks, Saturday and always enjoy responsibly. All right, let's get into some hockey talk. Really looking forward to bringing in our next guest, the one and only John Shannon, a regular contributor to Winnipeg Jets hockey broadcasts on CJOB, and more experience than just about everybody put together when it comes to putting the games on the TV. John, thanks so much for doing this. It is great to have you on WST. How are you?
Great, Andrew. Happy to be back.
It is great to have you on, and this is kind of a fun time to be talking about the Winnipeg Jets. I mean,
I thought we were going to talk about the Lions.
The stick and line. Well, just quickly, I mean, you, of course, more than just hockey. This is a matchup between the Bombers and Lions that we've really been waiting for all year long. They had that epic game at the end of the season to sort of determine where this game would be played. But man, one of the most anticipated West Finals we've had in a long time between the upstart Lions and the Bombers, who have just raised the bar for consistency in this championship era.
I think that's the one key thing you have to worry about, BC, is can they be consistent? They did show a little bit of it against the Stampeders in the semi, but hey, even they made it a lot closer than it should have been against Calgary last Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see if they can, get rid of all the kinks before they have to go and play Colaros and the boys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the game, but one thing I can guarantee you is that this city is going to show out. They've had 4 straight sellouts, looking for a 5th straight. And I mean, if the crowd for this one is anything like the last couple of West Finals, it is going to be a pretty special place to be on Saturday afternoon. And folks, grab your tickets if you haven't already. And what a day we've got actually Saturday here. The Jets are playing the Dallas Stars at 2 o'clock downtown, John. But before we get to that, a big weekend in the Central Division with games against the Blues and the Predators. But before we get to this week, I mean, what have you thought about the Jets overall compared to your preseason expectations to what we've seen in this first 10-game segment?
Well, I think my expectation of the Jets before the season started was a lot closer to what we saw in Arizona on Saturday afternoon. I did expect them to be deeper and faster and a little more physical. I had a bit more confidence in the defense, and I always thought that Connor Hellebuck would do the job. It was whether they could always put it together on the same night, Andrew. That to me was always the case. And quite frankly, if Mark Scheifele could understand that he has a different role on this club now, it is a different team. There is more depth on this team. He doesn't have to shoulder all of the offensive strategy of this club. And I think that, I think it's positive. I actually think Mark is learning he has a different role on this club. And I think we've seen a shift, as you talked about with Adam Lowry's line being so good. I think we've seen a shift in the power within the dressing room, and I think that's a positive for Winnipeg.
Well, and a positive and something I think we all agree was needed. And we'll get to Lowry and what he's done, as a captain and certainly leading that line right now. But I love to get your perspective on just Scheifele to this point, as well as your reaction to he and Hellebuck signing those matching deals on Thanksgiving, what that did to the conversations, the narrative around the team, and the start that Mark had, very hot, although not quite, as productive in these last few games. And a big part of that has been the difficulties on the power play.
Yeah, well, obviously the power play is key to it. And he doesn't kill as many penalties as the other guys do, so that's not a factor. I just, I think the signings obviously were good. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck committing to this organization for as long as he has now is such a positive for the franchise, for the city. Has he been as spectacular this year as we've seen in the past in his Vezina year? No. But you know what? It's only the first week in November. I fully expect that Connor Hellebuck will do what he has to do and steal some games down the stretch as this team gets back into the playoffs. I was one of those guys, and I made no bones about it. I was really disappointed in Mark Scheifele last year. I was one of those guys that thought maybe they should try to trade him. Maybe he should move on. Maybe they do need, when they talk about a change in culture, they do need a change in leadership. Obviously, Wheeler leaving was part of that, and Scheifele leaving might have been part of that as well. But when he stood up in front of his teammates in the dressing room the day after they signed, or the day before they made the announcement, but after he signed, and he said, "I'm here and I'm here to stay," and the reaction was positive, that tells you everything what his teammates think of him. And that's what this is all about. Those 23 guys in that room have to like and respect each other and have a loyalty to each other. We didn't see that as much as we should have in the last couple of seasons. I think Mark is learning that as we go. I really do. And I think that will make him a better player. We know he can pass the puck brilliantly. We know he can shoot. But there are some times where Mark has worried too much about Mark and not enough about the Jets. And I think we're seeing now he's starting to worry more about the Jets. And I think that's really important as this group of players matures. The new players coming in will have helped that too. The depth of the team helps that. The growth of guys like Cole Perfetti helps that. So I think everything's pointing in the right direction, and that does including the signing of both Connor and Mark on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, John. And listen, we can talk about Blake Wheeler's absence from the room. I'm sure that is a significant factor. We can talk about Adam Lowry, who always was the bridge, I think, from the different corners of the dressing room together, being a perfect guy to being the leader going forward. But I don't think it can be understated. With everything we heard from Mark over the last couple of years and knowing the contract that he had before, knowing what a big decision this was going to be, to have that done, finished, signed, sealed, and delivered, the security and certainty of what he's going to be paid, there's only one thing to do, and that's continue to grow as a player and help his team win hockey games. And listen, it hasn't been perfect. He's not going to be nominated for the Selke anytime soon. But I do think that we've seen a more engaged player that, is certainly buying into what the team has to do. And that's a real good thing for the Winnipeg Jets.
I think the buy-in has been solid. And that's the one thing I think that when fans do go to the arena or you watch on television or listen on the radio, I think that you can feel that he has bought into what everybody else is trying to push in the same direction. Andrew, this game as well as, if not better than I do. This is still based on being part of a team. It's no different than when you were 9 years old playing, peewee. It's you have to be there and be committed to everybody else. You don't play 60 minutes, you play 20. So you better be prepared to commit to your part and then support the other 40 minutes for the other players. And I think we're seeing that a lot more. And I think that what Adam and Nino and Mason have done is lead by example. And that will actually help this organization, help this team, and get the other 2 or 3 lines committed to pulling in the same direction as well.
John, it's funny you mentioned that because I wanted to get into Adam Lowry with you in particular. I think everyone knew that he was a great choice to be a leader, to be a guy that, has committed to Winnipeg, a great guy in the community, someone that universally respected in the dressing room, in the community, around the National Hockey League. But a lot of people have thought that this was maybe a little in 2023 an unconventional captain because he wasn't that first line player. He's always been sort of a third line player doing a lot of those little things. What's funny about the start to this season, John, is that if nobody knew the hierarchy of who the guys were and you just watched the Winnipeg Jets this year, I'm not sure that you wouldn't think that that was the number one line, the most effective line on this team. And the work that they're doing in both ends, they're being rewarded for it right now. And I mean, it's having a massive effect on the team.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, I was joking with Kelly on Saturday that I think we got to stop talking about number 1, number 2, and number 3.
I agree.
We have to. Let's go back to the old days of the when you and I were children, the Chicago Blackhawks of the early '60s, when every line had a nickname. Whether the scooter line, or we got to find. I think that's the challenge in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's a good old-fashioned hockey town. I think we have to find nicknames for the lines again. Forget about the first line. Well, hey, listen, if we're talking first line, then we have to talk about Adam Lowry's line, and we know that's not the case. So it's and your thought about Adam being picked the captain. The fact that it happened the year after Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel showed up, I think reflects on what both of those guys understand and feel what a captain should be as well. You go around the National Hockey League, and I think that, that whole thing, while he's the best player, so he has to be the captain, I think that mentality has been an escape. I think it's been a lazy decision for a few teams. Good teams have quality leaders as captains, and they also have leadership groups. And I also think we're seeing that now. I think we're seeing a leadership group. I think that Appleton's part of the group. I think Nick Ehlers is trying to be part of the group. Josh Morrissey's trying to be part of the group. And I think that it's easier for them to be part of the group when a guy like Adam Lowry is at the top of the loop.
Oh, listen, it's such a great point, because they wanted to grow that leadership group. Right. I mean, it was sort of a group and then everybody else for a long time here. And I think they realized before Rick Bowness even got on the job that they needed to change that. Obviously, they started those changes last year, but now, to your point, John, there are so many guys that I think far more than in the past are feeling a part of it, and that is so important from a team dynamic. This is a long, long season. There's a lot that goes into success on the ice and off the ice. Having everyone feel like they're an important, valued member of the team that a lot is counting on, I think is exactly what Rick Bowness and the organization was thinking of when they made this decision. And so far, so good when it comes to everything around that group and the growing number of guys that I think we consider leaders. Well,
and not only that, I think we have to also understand what kind of effect that has on the younger guys. When Cole Perfetti showed up, there was a schism in the room. There was. And you don't get to use the word schism very often in sports, so it's kind of cool. But there were different groups, and I think now that there's a real philosophy amongst the players that I belong now, because I'm here with people that can appreciate me. It's not just a small group of guys. It's not just my clique of teammates. The clique is now 23. It's not 3 and 5 and 6 and 7. I mean, there are teams in the NHL that still have that issue, and they're the teams that you start wondering: are they truly a team? Are they really going and playing for one common goal? What you can see now, and I truly believe this, and I think we've seen it really since the Vegas game, the game they lost at home on the Thursday night, is we're seeing a team play for the group. We're seeing it. Now, the results aren't going to be, from that point on 79-0, but we're seeing a team that plays for each other. And I think that's so important as this team tries to get to a point. Because remember what a great start they had last year, Andrew. And they banked all those points early and then squeaked in. This is a team that's going to have to be a little more consistent over the 82 games in order to get in the playoffs.
Well, and John, I mean, every one of these games is important right now. Every win counts the same as one at the end of the season. But you're exactly right, and it wasn't just last year. I mean, I still maintain that whatever happened with this Winnipeg Jets team either started or began to rear its ugly head at that very same time in the 2018-19 season when the team was second overall. They had just gone to the conference final. They were second overall. Buff got hurt. The stuff with Laine started happening, and they were a shadow of their team in the second half and ended up, falling out of first place, being tied with St. Louis and losing in that first series. And they never really got it back at that point. And we've seen kind of ugly mid-Januaries to Marches for a few seasons before. And that will not be lost on anyone in that locker room, especially with the change going forward. But in the here and now, what a huge week for the hockey club within the division. Knowing what's there for the taking right now, when you look at the standings, a big win in Arizona, and now St. Louis, Nashville, and their biggest test of the year in the division with the Dallas Stars coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and funny, St. Louis, I would have told you 5 days ago, St. Louis, that should be easy for Winnipeg. Last 2 games St. Louis has played, boy, they have looked very impressive. They seem to have now bought in again to what Craig Berube wants. They're a much younger, faster team than the Blues were the last couple of years. Nashville, who are on one of the horrendous road trips of the Western Conference, when you think about it, I actually had to check whether they were going to go home before they played in Winnipeg, but they got to play in Calgary, and then after the afternoon game in Edmonton, they played so well in. So they're going to be at the end of a road trip. That's one where I think Winnipeg has a huge advantage at that point on Thursday night. And then you're right. The Dallas Stars, in my mind, are one of the top 4 teams in the National Hockey League. They can score. They can be physical. They have a great defense, and they have one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League in Jake Ottinger. In fact, that to me is a great goaltender matchup if Connor plays. That could be 2/3 in my mind of what the U.S. Olympic team will look like in 2026 in goal if it's Hellebuck versus Ottinger.
Yeah, well, we should be trying to get one of these guys to get Canadian citizenship, to be perfectly honest with you, when we're talking about the goaltending situation in a projected best on best tourney. I wanted to ask you about a couple of the other teams in the league, but just before we move on the Jets, you mentioned Cole Perfetti. A lot is on his shoulders. I mean, he's playing in a very important role right now. Started at center, has moved back to the wing. What have you thought about Perfetti so far, and where are you at on his readiness to take that next step to be the player that the Winnipeg Jets believed he could be when they drafted him in the first round?
Well, we know he can pass the puck. He has brilliant hands. I mean, that's his strength. He's still, I think, in many ways, still learning how to play the NHL game, how to, with the depth of this team, there's responsibilities in the defensive zone as much as there are in the offensive zone. And I think that's why the move from center to wing was a logical one early in the season. But, if he can improve his play in the defensive zone, then I have no qualms what he can do when the Jets have the puck in and around the opposition net. To me, he's perfect for special teams on the power play, can do that. And there is a level of patience. The guys that got drafted during COVID, and then when you compound it with injuries that went on, he's still in that learning phase. You can compare him to guys in that same draft. He hasn't played near the amount of NHL hockey as some of the other guys, and I think we just have to be patient.
Well, and the ironic thing you mentioned about him is that I think he is so committed to being a better player and to doing what the coaching staff is asking of him. And we're seeing the results. He's playing with a far more veteran player in Nikolai Ehlers. And granted, Ehlers did miss training camp, and obviously that kind of set him back a little bit. But for my money, Perfetti on a game-to-game basis has been a lot more consistent than Ehlers has been through this early part of the year.
I'm not worried about Ehlers ever. I've been a fan of Nick since he was back in Halifax. I just love the way he plays. And if Nick has one downfall, he just thinks too darn much. Stop thinking, just keep doing it, and that would be it. And if we're going to, one of the real reasons that the lines seem to be meshing is that Nemesnikov has gone to the center position and done really well. I thought he was brilliant the second half of the game at Mullet Arena on I keep trying to remember which city it is in Phoenix. So it's Tempe. I thought he was brilliant the second half of the game in Tempe. With the Jets' victory. So when you have the ability to roll lines the way that Scott is able to do right now, I think that's a big part of the success. And that Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Ehlers line is just as good, if not better, than a lot of second lines in this league.
John Shannon with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. While things have been pretty good so far for the Winnipeg Jets, and certainly at 5-on-5 they're playing well, that special teams has been somewhat of an issue, but we talked about where they are right now in this big week in the Central Division. John, when we look around some of the other Canadian markets, things are getting hot, and they're getting hot early. I just did my daily lock shop show with Dustin Nielsen out in Edmonton, and I said, so how was the text line this morning, Dusty? And we had a bit of a laugh. How are the Oilers where they are right now, John?
Well, everybody's contributed to their misery. Everyone. Connor and Leon have contributed a little bit of it as well. Haven't scored enough, haven't played enough together. The defensive struggles of this hockey club are pretty evident. Darnell Nurse has not had the good start to the season. Evan Bouchard has brain cramps. Matthias Ekholm started the season a little injured and banged up, and now he's trying to catch up. There's something obviously missing, and I'm not sitting here saying it's coaching because I don't believe it's coaching, but I think the human element of the game right now is missing. They get down quickly, they get down early, and they can't recover. This is a systematic issue that they have had the last 3 seasons to start the season. Not this bad, Andrew. This is bad, but they've been a horrendous slow starting team. Even though they put themselves in this predicament even worse when they talked about cup or bust. And remember, that was the players talking cup or bust. It wasn't the writers. It wasn't the TV guys. It was the players saying, yep, this is a cup or bust year. They've put enough pressure on themselves, and now they're learning how to react. And it's not going to get easier when you consider they're going into Vancouver tonight to play the best team in Canada. And then, dare I say, Thursday night is their next game. You know who they're playing that night?
Vegas.
They're playing San Jose. And just think about it, and this is what the mental games that you go through when you're playing badly is that, we're bad. Well, we're going to have a tough night in Vancouver, but what if we lose to San Jose? Oh my goodness. I mean, but you can see it a mile away. I guarantee you there are a lot of Oiler fans across the country looking and saying, well, Vancouver's going to be tough, but oh my goodness gracious, we cannot lose to San Jose Thursday night.
No, that's about as close to the free space on the bingo card as there is in the National Hockey League and probably has been in a long time right now. What, the 4th time in NHL history to give up 10 in back-to-back games? I mean, it is ugly. But as far as Edmonton goes, listen, when this sort of happens, there's obviously the massive overreactions in some sections of the fan base. Fire the coach. Woodcroft's coached 130 games at a 650 winning clip. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that he just all of a sudden became a terrible coach. I will say this, the goalies need to be better. Everyone would agree with that, but I don't think you can just hang it all on goaltending as well, because John, as you mentioned, I mean, they're getting absolutely no depth scoring, and McDavid and Draisaitl, I think I heard, haven't scored since the 3rd or 4th game of the regular season. And when that dries up and everything else is going poorly, you don't win hockey games.
I think one guy's 5 games without a goal and the other one's 7. So, you're right. And I'm a true believer in team defense. And we can sit and we can get all over Jack Campbell and Stu Skinner, but they're not getting much help, man. And you could have a brick wall back there, and, shooters in the NHL will find the corner if you're not getting any help from not just the defensemen, but from the forwards. To me, defense is a team sport. And Jack Campbell and Stu Skinner are taking a lot of blame for a lot of deficiencies that exist in the Edmonton Oilers in their own zone.
You mentioned the Canucks. I mean, I was going to kind of talk about the hot spots, but that has been a great story so far. I mean, have they?
Unbelievable.
How much have they exceeded your expectations, or did you think that they would take a step up? And how are they doing it? I mean, Rick Tocchet obviously has certainly a different level of expectations from his players, and it seems to be getting the best out of the team on the West Coast.
Well, if you look at their numbers last year, their goal differential was horrendous, just horrendous, and it was all on the defensive side of the puck. Because goal scoring has never been a problem in Vancouver. They have some great snipers. They have one of the best puck-moving defensemen in the league as well, and Paterson and Miller, and they can shoot and score as well as anybody. So scoring goals was not a problem. But if you were able to cut down your goals against somehow, some way, you were going to be that much better anyway. So that's what Rick Tocchet has worked on. Adam Foote's running the defense. He deserves a ton of credit there as well. But in Tocchet's, first of all, I think now we were all a little ticked off when Bruce got publicly humiliated and fired, and they brought Rick in to coach. It was a wise move to bring Rick Tocchet in for those last 25 games. It really was a smart move, so he could gauge who was with the program and who wasn't, and what they needed to fix. So they knew they had to go out and fix their blue line, fix the defense. That's Ian Cole and Carson Soucy, who have done a very good job there. Philip Hronik has been a godsend in Vancouver. And people in Vancouver were critical of the trade because they gave up a first rounder. Hronik was not going to fit in Detroit, but he's fit in brilliantly in Vancouver. And so all of a sudden they've got 4 better defensemen than they had last year. 4. And that to me speaks why the Vancouver Canucks are doing what they're doing. And Thatcher Demko, by the way, another American goalie, Thatcher Demko is finally healthy and playing the way we saw him play in the bubble. So that's what's different in Vancouver.
It was really interesting to hear Brady Tkachuk talk, and we talked about Adam Lowry and his level of leadership. I loved what I heard from Brady on the weekend in that, and if folks missed it, the fans were chanting, "Fire DJ Smith," and, Brady took offense to it and basically jumped on a grenade and took all the attention off the coach and put it on himself and on the team right now. Very noble, not easy to do, especially for a young captain, but it does speak to the turmoil, unrest in the midst of the change, and obviously coming out of last week when Pierre Dorion left after getting hit with that penalty from the National Hockey League for the first rounder. Where are you at on the Sens right now in this very strange time in their existence?
Well, it's, they are, so Michael Landauer buys a hockey club. Steve Staios comes along with him. They haven't had the angst that every Senators fan has had for the last decade. They're trying to say, we're starting anew, we're starting fresh. Well, no Senators fan starts new. No Senators fan starts fresh. So you can understand their frustration when, particularly the 2 teams, in addition to the Senators, that we were all pointing at that said, boy, they're going to be better this year. Buffalo and Detroit. Both are off to better starts than the Senators. But when you look at the nucleus that the Senators have, I would argue that their nucleus is better than what you see in Buffalo and you see in Detroit. And so there's the obvious frustration for a Senators fan. That said, they've lost 3 of their top 6 defensemen. No Zub, no Shabbat. I think Bramstrom's still out. So all of a sudden they're playing with guys that should be in Belleville, not in Ottawa. And those are factors that you have to deal with. This is where, when a team goes 11-0-1 like Vegas did, you say, don't worry, boys, it's early. When a team like Ottawa goes 4-6, you say, don't worry, boys, it's early. This is where you're dealing with the marathon and not the sprint. The biggest challenge for Ottawa is that they have 16 of their first 23 games at home. And so that means they're going to have to, if they're going to make up time and they're going to be a better team, they're going to have to do it on the road, and that will be a challenge.
John, around your neck of the woods, I'm sure, it's funny. I've seen people in chat talk about all the Leaf conversations are involving the term pushback, which, of course, Rick Bowness made famous at the end of the Jets Vegas series last year. They signed Ryan Reeves to a 3-year deal. They bring in Domi. They bring in Bertuzzi. And then what happened last week against Boston happens. Is this just a team in their DNA is not of that competitive level to answer challenges of a team like Boston, frankly, that's pushed them around in the past? And how hot is it in Toronto? How angry are people about that, thinking that the signings in the summer had significantly changed the makeup of the Leafs?
I think people have quickly started to roll their eyes at Bertuzzi. A little less at Max, because Max's role on this club wasn't supposed to be as big as Bertuzzi's was. Tyler was supposed to be Toronto's version of Brad Marchand, and he hasn't become that guy. He's a different cat. This is a team that you wonder where the chemistry is. I've heard stories in the last year or so about when players came to Toronto in trades at last year's deadline, they were amazed at the chemistry that really didn't exist in the room. The next thing you know, Luke Schenn doesn't sign in Toronto. Ryan O'Reilly doesn't sign in Toronto, even though there's a ton of pressure to play here, but there are opportunities elsewhere, and they took them rather than stay here. So you do have to wonder about what's going on in the room. I mean, Domi and Bertuzzi, Matthew Nyes, who's a really good player, they should be better than they are. Ryan Reeves, guy, you know, listen, you guys know what Ryan Reeves is all about. Ryan Reeves is 36, 37 years old. Ryan Reeves can't make a difference now. You know, he can't.
They gave him a 3-year deal.
Well, I know, a 3-year deal. And that's, you know, that will, you know, it wasn't a lot of money, though. I mean, I'm not worried about it. It was in terms of what the Leafs pay people, it wasn't a lot of money. But and as good a person as Ryan Reeves is, you know, you wonder what his shelf life is on any club. When you look at how many teams he's played for in the last little while after finding success in Vegas, I would think that was probably his greatest impact. But he didn't last long enough there, and then he didn't last long enough in New York, and then he didn't last long enough in Minnesota. You know, so it hasn't worked the way it is. Really, you know who they really need in the lineup, Andrew? You know who they really need in the lineup? They need the president of the hockey club in the lineup.
Yeah.
Because nobody was meaner and tougher and chippier and could still score goals than Brendan Shanahan. That's who they need. But they don't fall to the ground very easily these days unless you're, you know, picking first or second in the draft.
How would you categorize Keefe's spot there? In that, you know, everyone kind of, I mean, listen, he has always been thought of as a Dubas guy. They go way back. He was his choice. Well, Dubas is in Pittsburgh now. Brad Treliving's the GM. But as you mentioned, Brendan Shanahan's at the top of the food chain. I mean, if things don't turn around for the Leafs, is that the move that's made at some point?
The Leafs were 4-4-2 at one point last year, and I think he was in a lot more pressure last year than he is this year. I think people are now saying that they see that this is not on him. This is on the team. This is on the players. He did get a little bit of an extension from Brad Treliving, and obviously that would come with an endorsement from Brendan Shanahan. So I'm not concerned about Sheldon. I think he was as frustrated as the rest of us were watching the Maple Leafs in Boston and no pushback after the Liljegren injury.
Hey, Calgary got a much-needed win on the weekend in Seattle, but they're still 3-7-1 with these massive questions over guys like Elias Lindholm and Hanifin. They also have new management. How do you think things play out over the next few months in Calgary?
Oh boy, I'll tell you what. Just as a personal side, I've known Ryan Huska for 20 years. I think Ryan Huska is one of the good people. You know, I met him when he was first coaching in the Western League in Kelowna, and I just think he's a marvelous person. I do think he's a good coach. I think he reminds me, Andrew, of when Jeff Blashill got hired to replace Babcock in Detroit. You know, was he put there just as a placeholder for a while? And that's an awful thing to say, but you know, maybe Ryan can coach himself into a better spot. I'm not worried about Lindholm. If they want to get something for Lindholm, they can. The two guys that I have to be on everybody's list are Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri. What's going to happen? How are they going to turn things around? Are they going to be able to turn things around? You can't rely on rookies to come out of the AHL like they have the last two games to score first goals in order to get things going every night. This is on Jonathan Huberdeau. This is on Nazem Kadri to do their part. And those are the guys that they have to get turned around. And in fact, I would say that those two players know that they have to do it, and they better start taking over.
Hey, John, this has been so much fun kind of going around Canada here. On the way out, though, I want to ask you about the Boston Bruins. I mean, you lose Krejci, you lose Bergeron, who has been the heart and soul of that team for so long. They have the disappointing playoffs last year after that incredible record-setting regular season. And I think everyone thought that this team, like, there's no way they could be as good as they were last year. And yet there they are, 9-1-1 through their first 11 games. How are they doing it?
Well, they draft well. The latest guy, Matt Patra out of Guelph, has played a real role. At the same time, I think Don Sweeney has got a little bit of Kelly McCrimmon in him, and he says, you know what, the only way we're going to win is we're going to have a great defense. You know, he stole Hampus Lindholm. and Lindholm has been great since he got there. When Charlie McAvoy comes back off his suspension, he'll just pick it up again. They still have the best goaltending tandem in the NHL, and you know what? Jake DeBrusk, Charlie Coyle, Brad Marchand, Pavel Zacha. These are good quality professionals, and they play the game in a simple way. It's amazing, and I'll leave you with this. It's amazing how you put that Bruin spoked B on your chest. It's amazing how much braver you seem to become. It really is. There is something in the water, whether it's in the Chesapeake River or something in the Chowder, that makes you braver when you play for the Boston Bruins. It's amazing.
Well, we talk a lot about team culture. That's a team that certainly
Indeed.
has it. John, thanks so much for the time. When do we get to hear you again next with Kelly and the gang on OB before Winnipeg Jets hockey?
I do my Friday commentary. That's the one thing I know I have to commit to. Kelly gives me heck if I don't get it in on time. So, but I'm not really sure what I'm on next. Kelly sends me an email and I'm ready to go. That's
we always
I just yell, put me in, coach.
We always tune in, and it's always a bonus if you're on. John, thanks again for the time. Really appreciate the conversation. Have a great one.
I'll tell you what, here's the deal, Andrew. If the Lions win Saturday, you have to have me back on sooner than later, and I get to sing the Lions fight song.
Oh, okay. I will agree, just so we can have you back. But I hope we'll have you back and we can talk about the Bombers going to the Grey Cup.
Maybe we'll see you at the Grey Cup too.
You bet. We'll be there. Hey, thanks so much, John. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
The one and only John Shannon. Make sure to follow John on Twitter at JShannon, JShannonHL. And, of course, you can hear him chopping it up with the fellas on CGOB before Winnipeg Jets hockey intermissions, post-game as well throughout the season. That was a lot of fun. All right, we are going to get to a little bit more Bomber Lion talk. We'll have Jeff Hamilton come up. But we're going to get back to the Winnipeg Jets and hear a little bit more come out of Saturday's big win in Arizona. Don't forget, big games this week and really a big homestand beginning on Thursday for the Winnipeg Jets. Nashville in on Thursday night. I did see that they're doing a little Moose promo as well. A kind of neat giveaway with a pennant featuring Josh Morrissey, Cole Perfetti, and who was the third one?
Kyle Connor.
Kyle Connor, thank you, as former Manitoba Moose players. So that's a nice giveaway at the game. And then, of course, Saturday against the Dallas Stars. Tickets available right now. Jersey coming up next week. And then Arizona and Buffalo. Nice weekend games for the people. Friday and Saturday night heading into Grey Cup Sunday. Go to winnipegjets.com for tickets. And, of course, you can check out ticket packages as well. Do have to thank our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, very important at this time of year, beauty products and groceries, and Winnipeg's largest selection of local products too, get on over to one of 6 Vita Health Fresh Market stores or online at their fully shoppable website with local delivery options at myvita.ca. And we know it's Men's Health Month, gang. Prairie Naturals offers Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements formulated to help support the changing needs of a man's body. Prost Force is evidence-based formulation of the key nutritional and phytochemical ingredients researchers recommend for prostate health. Prairie Naturals men's health supplements can help males address the challenges with prostate health, andropause, low libido, low testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. And they're on sale all month at Vita Health, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Gang, Wallace & Wallace are great sponsors and friends. You know that they're the fencing experts in town. You saw the fences and their trucks all over the city this summer, as they always are. But did you know that they're also the leaders in overhead garage doors? And that garage door of yours had lots of ups and downs over the summer and fall, getting you and your family to all the fun stuff. But guess what? That garage door is about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And man, it's already November. The holidays are just around the corner. Guys, if you're looking into your closet and realize that you need to up your menswear game, I think you all know that F Apparel is the spot to get that taken care of. Pop into F and check out custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. In addition, they can suit you up for the big day. If you're getting married or you're in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the staff at F Apparel about a 15% discount when the group gets their suits at F Apparel. They're waiting for you downtown, 190 Smith Street. Find out more online or make an appointment at F, that's EPH apparel.com. All right, great stuff with John Shannon. Let's get Remo back in here because did want to talk a little bit more about the game on Sunday before we get into tomorrow against Thursday. And listen, it was all, I mean, everyone was talking about Nino Niederreiter. Everyone was talking about Brendan Dillon, Mason Appleton, another monster game, Adam Lowry as well. The one guy I wanted to bring up, Remis, that has taken his fair share of criticism that I thought had a monster game, even more impressive when you consider what he's been doing, was Neil Pionk. Pionk was the one guy in the first period that was shooting the puck, and he was hammering it, got a couple on net early, played a really competitive game. And, you know, this article came out after we were finished on Friday, but Mike McIntyre sat down with Neil Pionk in Arizona, and to hear what he's been going through in the aftermath of the tragic passing of his former teammate Andy Johnson, it took, I think, everybody back just to learn how close they were. And he even admitted that he hasn't been able to stop thinking about it, even to the point of thinking about it while he was in the penalty box in Vegas.
Yeah, this was quite a read. Shout out to Mike McIntyre, who has been on this road trip. He should be joining us tomorrow from St. Louis. He's at the Jets practice right now. They're still in Arizona. And yeah, Adam Johnson tragically killed in the accident in the British Elite Hockey League. And Neil Pionk opened up to Mike McIntyre and said, you know, he was one of his best friends. Went to college together. He was the best man at his wedding. And I mean, going through all that mentally while trying to play, saying, as you mentioned, thinking about it while you're in the penalty box, thinking about it at all times, you have to wonder, just wonder about, his mental state. He seems had a great game on Saturday. You know, when he's in the lineup Tuesday, he's going to be playing for his friend. And shout out to the Jets, chartering a plane, taking them to the memorial, the private memorial, which I believe was yesterday. And there's a celebration of life in Minnesota. The Jets organization has certainly stepped up for Pionk, who Iafallo's going, a number of players.
Toninato as well, all former UMD Bulldogs.
Yeah, so number of players going. What a tragic situation there, Huss.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I mean, what Neil and all of his close friends and family are going through, I mean, you can't even imagine. But there has been some, and they'll, I'm sure, do a beautiful service, and there'll be memorials within the hockey world for him. I'm not sure if you caught this yesterday, premiership game on the weekend. Nottingham Forest Football Club was playing a game, and the fans there made a massive, those tifos, those huge, like, they look like paintings, like on canvas or whatever, and rolled it up. It was an amazing visual. So I know that hockey, certainly over in Britain, is a blip on the map compared to soccer. But it just shows that, how that tragedy is resonating over there as well. And there it is. You can see they had the big flag of Johnson. They did a moment for him. Just an absolutely tragic situation that we learned a lot more about how that's been affecting Neil Pionk in particular and some of his teammates on Friday. So good stuff from Mike McIntyre. But as far as the game went, it didn't look good when the team was down 2-0, and then it was Nino Niederreiter, the Swiss Superman, to the rescue, along with along with Mason Appleton. And I guess as we get into Nino Niederreiter, Remo, and I mean, we'll be talking a lot about what they did on the ice. Interesting little tidbit from Billick on the weekend that Nino's agent's making a trip to Winnipeg this week, and I think a lot of people probably, sounds like with the Nino camp, as well as the Winnipeg Jets, would love to get the Mr. Hat Trick from the weekend signed to an extension beyond this season after the way he's perfectly fit in with the Jets.
Yeah, Nino got off to a great start, Huss, and the puck wasn't going in, but it's certainly been going in lately. And what great timing, Hustler, for this bomb dropped by, I don't know if you classify it as a bomb, but this nugget by Scott Billick dropped 11:14 p.m. on Saturday. Some late-night Jets news. Niederreiter's agent expected to be in town next week for the week. Niederreiter wants an extension in Winnipeg. We'll see where it goes. And we've been saying, I think since last year, like, you just lock this guy up. He's such a perfect fit. He's got a skill set that, you know, they don't really have a lot of. Big body, can go in the corners, go to the front of the net. He can score, as you mentioned, you know, 7 seasons of 20 goals. And I think he came here with an open mind, Huss, and that didn't really know a lot about the city. I think when you're a visiting player, you just go to the hotel and the rink, but he seems to enjoy it. And I don't know what it would. I was thinking, Huss, like a 3-year deal. I don't know, 4 or maybe 5 million AAV. I don't know. Does that get it done? He sees what other guys have committed here to the Winnipeg Jets and saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of this." And I'm just looking up his. Let me just refresh myself on what his current contract. He's making $4 million now. Would he want a bit of a bump? He is 31 years old, so I don't think you want to go too long term, but hey, you want to get him to sign on the dotted line?
Well, and you know, when it comes to the negotiations between the two sides, I would think that, I mean, the AAV is going to be important, but I would imagine the term might be more important. So, you know, whether they're pushing for a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal, but they want to go that long, certainly a multi-year deal. And I'd imagine they'd probably want to look at it longer than 2 years. We'll ask Hammer about that. Jeff Hamilton, we thought Jeff was going to come on a little later, but he sounds like he's good to go. So we'll save that audio afterwards, and we'll get into a little bit of NFL talk as well here on the program. We're going to talk Bombers, Lions, West Final coming up. 5:30 p.m. Saturday. Tickets going fast. You know where to be. And if you're going to the game, get there early. 3:30 p.m. The Princess Auto Tailgate Zone opens before the game with cheap beers, hot dogs. I imagine they'll crank out some hot chocolate for a playoff game as well. Some warming stations and an atmosphere and a vibe unlike anywhere else in the Canadian Football League. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see him on either Panet Road or Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And hey, getting ready for that game, you also want to mix in a little trip over to Royal Sports. Of course, your number one spot when it comes to Jets and Bomber merchandise, toques, scarves, some of the things to keep you a little bit warm for the Bomber game, certainly there. Jerseys, and with the holidays around the corner, you can pretty much nail all of your Christmas shopping for the sports fans in one simple trip over to Royal Sports. And Remo, actually, if you've got a second, fire up their Instagram. They just dropped today. I've had a lot of comments on that Winnipeg Whips hat that I got at Royal a while ago. They've got a new hometown classic launch of a limited edition Whips hat in a corduroy hat. So those are just out right now. I have a feeling they won't last very long. So if you want to get your hands on one of those, of the exclusive hat collection launched by Royal Sports along with New Era, the Whips one is in store right now. And by looking at that picture, you can see all the incredible selection they've got at Royal Sports. Pop down and see them, 750 Pembina Highway, and give them a follow on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina. And hey, it's Monday night. That means Monday Night Football. Interesting matchup between the Chargers and the Jets this evening. You're looking for a great spot for Monday night. You don't have to go far. Your local BP is the place to be. Gather with your friends for the game on the big screen with big sound. Enjoy ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and your chance to win great prizes every Monday night at your local Boston Pizza. And hey, if you're staying at home, you can always order in at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's bring the Hammer in, who is getting ready for a very busy week heading into the West Final. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good, man. It's a car cast today. It's just been one stop after the next. I wasn't even supposed to work today. I usually clear my schedule for these hits just so I can give you and your viewers the best of me. But I'll see if I can't rally to the occasion.
Well, you're always bringing it, my friend. Let's get to it, and we can maybe hit on a couple Jets topics. But I mean, this week is going to be dominated by talk of the West Final. The Lions got it done against Calgary. What did you think of BC's performance and the steam they're going to be bringing into what we expect to be a chilly IG Field on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought it was a convincing win. I mean, all the question marks, if you want to call them that, around Vernon Adams, I think were tempered. I don't think he had a great regular season finale when he was pulled at halftime. And despite Rick Campbell talking about his health being just fine, that he was setting him up to be the hero when it mattered. And sure enough, when it mattered, Vernon Adams was the hero. And so, I thought the BC Lions, I wrote in my CFL Rundown column last week, I hate doing predictions, but I've decided to join the game. I had BC winning this one. I know what Calgary was able to do against them in the regular season finale, and how, a lot of the talk was around their run game and how, BC might have difficulties handling that again. I think it was pretty evident based on Saturday's affair that probably weren't playing their best football to close out, what was a pretty meaningless regular season finale. So I think we saw what the good BC Lions, I think they come into Winnipeg this week with some momentum. I certainly don't think it's better than getting the week off. As we know, it's the wear and tear at this time of the season is significant. It takes guys days to get back into feeling quote unquote good. So there's all those things that come with it, but certainly a good showing by BC, and should be a good game here against the Bombers. I know that there's some question marks with health and in Winnipeg over a few guys, and certainly that rest is helping. They're doing they've been through this before in previous years, so they know how to handle it. So there's no concern there, but certainly should be a good game this week, especially after what we saw from Lions last week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they looked ready for the challenge, and in a lot of ways, you mentioned the regular season finale. I think for the Bombers and the Lions, in a lot of ways, the regular season finale was, for all intents and purposes, that all-time thriller between those two teams in BC Place, which basically determined that this football game on Sunday would be played here in Winnipeg. The Bombers did have the bye week, where they didn't have to play. They were out on the field on the weekend. I mean, what do we know about what the Bombers have been doing while BC had to worry about the Calgary Stampeders? And in particular, any word or update on Dalton Schoen and Rashid Bailey, who got nicked up at the end of the game in Calgary?
Yeah, so I think this week was all about trying to get as closely back to a routine as possible, but also understanding that those routines week in and week out are exhausting. They weren't going through day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 like they would, because they don't know their opponent. And a lot of the talk and the meetings and the strategizing, of course, is around who they're playing. So while I think there was an effort to stay in that routine physically, whether that meant hitting the field, they did have a couple practices this week. I am sure they were hitting the field for more. They didn't have to, but just knowing this team, I'm sure they were probably out there every single day doing some kind of, physical fitness of some sort, or strategizing, whatever, just staying sharp, right? Because this is the week that, I don't want to say that, of course, it's the week that matters. Last week mattered too, but this is the week where you want to get your execution in. You want to be, fine-tuned. You want to be running well. And I think that was pretty much the whole point of last week. Like I said, I mean, guys were at the stadium every day, in the workout room, doing their own on-field stuff, doing team, on-field stuff. And so while it was a different week, of course they didn't have to play. They are healthy. They are getting ready. And now I think it was just so that you didn't, you weren't off your feet. You weren't going into this week feeling rusty, right? That rest versus rust argument. And it's more than just being rusty for the game. It's being rusty for your, you go a whole season, you're so dialed in for your routines. You're so focused on what's at hand all week that I'm sure that was a nice mental break, but it was also making sure that you were ready and prepared to hit the ground running, which ultimately starts tomorrow as day one of practice gets underway for a big game on Saturday.
What are you hearing about Sean and Bailey? I mean, I know he was out there. He just wasn't fully participating in practice. I would maybe be a little bit more optimistic, but seeing Dalton in that walking boot and seeing some of the rumblings of the potential severity of the injury, I mean, you hearing anything that he's a possibility, or is that best case scenario, the team wins and he maybe can go in Hamilton?
Yeah, sorry about that, Haas. I missed the probably the most important part of that question he asked for at least what the fans want to know. You know what? Dalton Schoen, the way I view things is he hasn't been on the field. Obviously, it's not a minor thing. It's something that I'm sure Al Couture has been, spending every single day trying to get him back onto the field, a la Zach Collaros for the Grey Cup last year, a la Matt Nichols in previous years, a la Chris Streveler in previous years, Brandon Alexander, anyone who's dealt with, a serious injury, and still wants to play, obviously. Let's just put it this way, Haas. In the times that I've been covering this team, the years I've been covering this club, I feel like these players who we don't think are going to play, there's no chance they're going to play, the injuries happen so close to game time. I've been more often than not surprised that they do play, far more often than, the result of them not playing. And so while I don't have, a definitive answer for you on Dalton Schoen, I think the fact of the matter is neither did the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And at least they're not, they're going to continue to do everything they can for Dalton Schoen to get him prepared, to get him ready. I'm sure they talk about all the different options that are available to him and, the risks involved and stuff that they would do for the game. And, stuff I'm talking about is freezing and all those things. That's not unique to Dalton Schoen. That's, every single player that tries to come back and, and as long as they're not risking severe injury, want some of that pain, help with the pain, obviously. And so I don't have a definitive answer on him. I just, my gut's telling me that, he's going to play. But who knows? I mean, if he's not, let's just say this, if he's not playing, it's because it's that bad. It was despite all the efforts that were made to get him on the field, it just wasn't enough. And so I don't know where that's at. Like I said, my gut's kind of telling me he does play, but we'll see. I mean, Rasheed Bailey, Mike O'Shea pretty much said earlier this week in his avail over the weekend, rather on Saturday, that Rasheed was good to go. And he doesn't, he doesn't give a lot of hints about injuries, and he certainly doesn't usually say guys are good to go. So Rasheed Bailey, if they're not, so Rasheed Bailey, I think, is going to be a player. I mean, maybe he needs to, maybe they probably need to make sure that he's good at practice. I wouldn't be worried if you show up if at practice on Tuesday. Sorry, missed call there from my boss. If Rasheed Bailey isn't at practice on tomorrow, that all of a sudden he's not going to play. I don't think that. I mean, part of me doesn't expect him to practice tomorrow just because I think you don't really put the added stress on the injury with an added day of practice. No one really needs to practice at this point, or at least not all week. So, Dalton Schoen, he's certainly I'm less positive that he'll play than a Rasheed Bailey. But again, I do think just given the experience with the medical staff, history would suggest that, they will go to incredible measures. And injuries that look like it might be 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away are suddenly not that long away. And so just because I've seen that over and over again, I'm just not going to bet against them, and that's why I feel that way. But I cannot tell you definitively if he'll be in the lineup on Saturday. And the other thing too is they did pick up Markeith Ambles for a reason. I mean, he is insurance, right? He's not just insurance for Dalton Schoen. And there's other potential injuries. I don't have any of that out there, but I'm just saying things could happen, and so you want that experience in case something does happen. But as I wrote earlier this week, if all goes to plan, Markeith Ambles will not take a single snap with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this season.
When we're talking about Bailey, he had that incredible touchdown, one of the plays of the year in that meaningless game at the end of the season in Calgary, and then did get nicked up. I mean, the guy plays so hard every single time he's out there. And I know we think of receivers as, options for Zach Collaros catching big plays. To me, Bailey needs to be in there for the running game. I mean, the one thing that you're going to get from Rasheed Bailey every single time he is out there is a full buy-in and commitment to whatever the offense is calling. And a lot of times he's been incredibly effective, not on the stat sheet, Jeff, but in making really significant blocks that have helped the O-line break an extra 5, 10, 15, 20 yards for Brady Oliveira.
Same reason why I love Venice Beach, man. I like to play in the mud. And that is Rasheed Bailey to a nutshell. Him along with Drew Wolodarski is another guy where they are asked to do a role that doesn't necessarily result in the kind of plays we saw Rasheed Bailey do in the regular season finale, where he had that incredible touchdown. That's just not what he's asked to do on a week in and week basis. His job, the thankless role that him and again Drew Wolodarski plays a lot about is for those, the run game, the blocking, the being the extra guys on the edge, the playing the physical game, not just because they want to, but because they can, and they're incredibly good at it. And a lot of success that Brady Oliveira's had this year has not just been the offensive line, but the work of the receivers. And those two names, everybody chips in to a certain degree, but it definitely is Rasheed Bailey and Drew Wolodarski that find themselves more often than not clearing lanes for other people or being decoys for other receivers. And certainly, his absence, I don't think Rasheed Bailey will be absent, but that would be one of the biggest things. It's not just a guy with sure hands in a lot of instances and can play a physical game, but a guy who can play, do some of those thankless jobs, like get in on those extra blocks and again, do them well. And that's why the Bombers have been so effective in the ground game, which is going to be a really, really big part, important part of Saturday's game.
Hammer, the Montreal Alouettes beat the Ticats. They get another crack at the Argos, who have basically been waiting for this game for 2 months. Do you give the Alouettes much of a shot to go in and pull the upset? And how challenging will it be for the Argos to dial it up at the level that they're going to need to, considering that they've been basically waiting for this, as I mentioned, for 7-8 weeks?
Well, yeah, exactly. 7 or 8 weeks. The last third of the season they've been dealing with this, so they know exactly what's going on. And if anyone caught those, final third of the season for the Argos, they didn't really miss a beat when they put their backups in. It feels like the challenge for them is finding the right mix of players because they got so many talented guys. And, I do give a lot of credit to Montreal. I thought, not only if you look at that game, I thought Hamilton was going to make it a heck of a lot closer, but then you got the Owls, do what good teams do. And that's put their foot on your necks when they got you down. And we saw that from the Alouettes. We see a team in Montreal that is well coached. Jason Moss is, he's really, really, really taken a hold of that team and been a part of that city and community. He absolutely loves it. And I think that passion for the market has certainly transferred into his coaching and how he, how serious he takes his job. He always was a serious guy, but he just has the right buttons to push, I think, for this team because, as we all knew in the off season with all the uncertainty around ownership and certainly the uncertainty around ownership while free agency was happening, right? I mean, they lost Eugene Lewis, they lost Trevor Harris, two of their best weapons on offense because of the uncertainty there. And for, bring in a guy like Cody Fajardo, who they're asking just not to make any mistakes, because their defense is strong. They got some good running. They got some good running options, obviously, and they have weapons, through the air. Austin Mack's done well this season, and so they've really just played a team game, and that's where I think they're kind of scary, is that they have belief in each other, right? And they're, they have the talent, but they really do have that, especially after that victory, this past weekend. I think they're feeling really good about their game. But that being said, the stats don't lie, man. Like, they didn't beat Montreal beats the teams they're supposed to beat. That's below them in the standings. They don't beat the teams that are above them in the standings. And the record is, I think they were like 0-7 against the big three, the Toronto, BC, and Winnipeg, and they were perfect in the rest of their game. So I don't think anyone was surprised to see what they did to Hamilton. I think people will be, quite frankly, shocked if they go into Toronto and carve out a victory. I just think Toronto's, Ryan Dinwiddie is, I don't want to say he's an underrated coach, because I don't think anybody, for a guy who's been nominated for Coach of the Year, I think the last 2 years, and is probably going to win it this season, is all that necessarily underrated. But I don't think he's necessarily as appreciated as he should be for, his ability to just, come up with game plans and know his players. And I still, he's very much a player's coach. I still think he's working on that aspect of his game, or of his craft, where, he can kind of reel guys in emotionally. But he just, I just think he's just such a smart mind, and much like we see in Winnipeg, has a great staff around him that puts his players into success. And so, playoff football, anything can happen. I would not be surprised if it was a close game, but I do think Toronto just has the horses. I think they're ready for this. I think they've been planning for this. They know exactly who, I imagine who their opponent was going to be. Seeing those two teams a lot. I just, as good and as impressive, certainly exceeded the expectations, I imagine, of majority of CFL fans out there. Certainly my expectations for them this year. But I just think this storybook, if you will, does not have a great ending for the Alouettes, and Toronto does what they have to do this week to punch their ticket to the championship game.
Hammer, we're always, we always like to promote good news stories for the Canadian Football League, and attendance was up, I think 3% this year. Ratings on TSN really strong this year and continuing to grow. But this coming Saturday could be a massive day for the Canadian Football League, in that there's the potential of having 2 finals in each division potentially sold out. We know what the Bombers have been doing at the gate with 4 straight, and we'll expect another massive crowd at IG Field on Saturday. But I got to tell you, it is great. And I know everyone loves to pick on Toronto, and they have not supported that team well. How huge would it be for the Canadian Football League if BMO is sold out for the Argos on Saturday afternoon?
Especially impressive given that it's Montreal. I still think it would be impressive all the way around, but if it was Hamilton in Toronto, I would almost be shocked if it wasn't sold out. Because, Hamilton is going to try to do everything, would have tried to do everything they could to get their team back to Hamilton the next week for the Grey Cup. Anytime there's a sellout, whether it's in Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Toronto, it's good news for the CFL. And you want to have sellouts for big games. There's a lot of talk about how challenging it is in Toronto. I've certainly spilled enough ink about it. And it's even more disappointing when you look at the kind of success they had, the historic season that they had, tying, a league record for the most victories in a season, in the 18-game era. That it hasn't, it's not that they don't have a great fan base. I think they do have a great fan base. They don't seem like a fan base that wants to show up to games and support, on-field events. And, I think you probably some people there listening to me right now and thinking, what's this idiot talking about? If they had hardcore fans, they would fill that stadium. Yeah, maybe, but I do know that they get a lot of numbers. You talk about that increase in viewership in TSN. A lot of that accounts for viewers out in Ontario, particularly Southern Ontario. So I don't think it's a lack of love for the CFL. But certainly you want to have those packed gates. You want to have that energy in stadiums. You want players playing in front of it. You want people going home and talking about how wild it was, that you couldn't find you had to stand up the whole game. It was just a wild experience, right? So that's great news. And especially when you consider the time of year, Huss, like, we're talking about a balmy high of -4 in Winnipeg on Saturday. It all of a sudden becomes pretty appetizing to sit down on your couch in your warm home on your big TV and watch the boys get it done. It's a whole other ordeal to get down there and to sit for four quarters in frigid temperatures. So I give kudos to everybody who goes out, and I'm with you. You love to see it. You want to see it. You want to see the league thriving. You want to see the atmosphere, a good one, especially when you consider what's at stake this weekend. So it's not surprising. So hopefully those ticketing groups from each team can really get on their horse here in the final stretch and get those sellouts done. Or hey, just get the rest of the tickets and get a balloon over the city and parachute them down over the people and then call it a sellout. I don't care. Just get the butts there.
Yeah, well, listen, I really hope to see it in both venues, and it should set up what will be an amazing week in Hamilton for the Grey Cup the following week. Hammer, before we go, we spent a lot of time talking Jets so far this season. I mean, big win in Arizona after falling down 2-0. And once again, Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter, Mason Appleton, absolutely dominant, and Brendan Dillon getting into it with a couple goals as well. Just a quick thought on the Jets coming out of that win into a huge week for them when it comes to the Central Division, with a road game in St. Louis and then home games against Nashville and Dallas. Of course, the Dallas game leading us right into the West Final on Saturday.
Yeah, a couple contract years for Nino Niederreiter and Brent Dillon, right on time, eh?
Timing
right on time
is everything.
for those conversations, yeah. And then from what I understand from Scott Billick's report, even better timing for Nino Niederreiter's agent to show up and start talking business. That would be a tough one for the Jets if you're going to go by recency bias. But you know what? Nino Niederreiter's been kind of doing that. He's been doing that since he got here. I mean, how many times did you hear last year Niederreiter shows up at the trade deadline, and everyone's talking about him being the template for this team's success. So it's great to see a guy like him, start putting the puck in the back of the net, getting rewarded for that. Same thing with Mason Appleton. Obviously, we talked about this last week. I think Rick Bowness had a bit of a hope that maybe he could bring Mason Appleton up to the top line. He wasn't going to stick there necessarily for a long time, but get that confidence going, get that scoring going. Well, he didn't do anything really on that line, but that didn't stop him from going back to his regular trio and really feeling pretty good about himself. So, I think this is going to be an interesting year for the Winnipeg Jets. They clearly have the talent. We've clearly seen over the first 10 games here or so that they have an ability to outplay their opponent. They've had more better periods than bad periods. So I just think it's about finding that synergy, right? It's about finding that consistency, that identity, and then just fine tuning that identity. I think the biggest thing with this team is they just can't seem to get, two lines going at once. Consistent enough, right? Or like it's got to be like the third line's carrying the team here, and then it's the first line. And I'm not saying we haven't seen that this season. Of course, we've seen that this season, but I think you'd like to see more of that to just kind of make it a bit of a fluid, for lack of a better term, a bit of a fluid contribution throughout the lineup, and not have to, make guys feel like they need to be the ones that are carrying the ship, every week. But I like the look at this Jets team. Certainly Connor Hellebuck has found his game a bit more here, and they're going to need him to. The defense, I mean, if you got guys like Brendan Dillon scoring goals, that's just going to help with confidence. I still think that's part of the group that, if the Jets get to the trade deadline this year and things are going well, it might be the part that they probably want to improve on. I don't think that's coming from anywhere extraordinary for me. But I think the record isn't necessarily where maybe fans want it to be, but I do think this team has the pieces, and if they, but that it doesn't matter if you have the pieces, you got to put them together. And while we've seen certainly some parts of that, we got to see more of it. And I think there's a good opportunity coming up here, get back home, or to wrap up the the road trip in St. Louis, get back home for some good hockey. And I mean, this is the start of the year, man. There's still lots to play, but we all know as you inch closer to American Thanksgiving, what all those stats suggest. I just think, the Jets aren't in a bad spot. They could certainly be in a better one.
Yeah, no doubt. And, big opportunities this week in the division, as we mentioned, with St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas on the schedule. Hey, just on the way out, we mentioned this a little earlier today, but pretty powerful piece from your colleague Mike McIntyre in that conversation with Neil Pionk. And, of course, mentioned this before as well. Credit to the Jets chartering that flight for he and Iafallo and Dominic Toninato to go to both the private service and the public celebration of life and get back there today. But I mean, we focus so much on the intricacies of the games and a giveaway here. I mean, to hear Neil Pionk, how he's been struggling in the aftermath of his very close friend's passing to the point where he's thinking about it in the penalty box. It was a real eye-opening piece from Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly shared it, and Mike did a great job on the piece for sure. And, I certainly appreciate Neil coming out and sharing those kind of things, sharing those kind of feelings, sharing those kind of experiences, right? Because, you got a platform that speaks to people, right? People care about how you're doing. They care about you as a member of the Winnipeg Jet. You have a lot of influence. So to me, just for him to come out and share those feelings, to be vulnerable, to be open about it, talk about what he's going through, I can't help but to think that's gonna help somebody else out there who's dealing with similar circumstances. Has suffered a great loss here, and it's kudos to the Winnipeg Jets organization for getting them down, for chartering them a flight so that they could be part of that. I think that's really important. I think that shows a lot of character from True North, and their mandate of being a family and all those things. Those things go a long way, and I can only imagine what's weighing on Neil's mind and other players, not just on the Jets but across the hockey world, and what they're going through. It's you're kind of trained to put your feelings aside and be focused on the task at hand, and hockey's everything and whatnot, all those cliches, and then you get reminded pretty quickly on it being a game when an incident like that happens. And so again, just to reiterate what I said, I give a lot of credit to Mike for writing it, certainly to Neil for talking about it, and hopefully his words are able to help other people out there and what they might be dealing with.
Yeah, and hopefully this couple days will help the healing for him and the other guys that were close to Johnson. Just on the way out, I mean, I know you're going to be all over the Bomber game. That's all hands on deck from the Free Press team when we're getting ready for the big game on Saturday.
Yeah, I got my rundown column coming out. I got a feature coming out on Zach Collaros and about his. You watched that quarterbacks documentary?
Yeah, like with Mahomes.
Yeah, obviously you watched it. So I just trying to get in the head of Zach Collaros and what how much he needs to know before a game, all that kind of stuff. I'm teasing a little bit here, but I don't think anyone's going to catch up on me at this point. Got that going, and then obviously the game coverage is going to be a really exciting game, man. I'm really happy for Bomber fans. I think it's it's been not a long season, but it's just to get to this point, to get that excitement ramped up, to see another game at IG Field, people just smiling. I think it's you talk about Adam Johnson and what's going on in the world and whatnot. I think any excuse to smile these days is a good one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, this isn't really something to smile about, but I should quickly ask you about another lawsuit related to the 2010 Blackhawks from a second victim. I mean, it's newsworthy that there's another lawsuit. This is not like really new news. I think we knew that there was someone other than Kyle Beach that was victimized by that former coach. But is this strictly a legal thing at this point? I mean, pretty much everyone from the organization that was involved is no longer there anymore. I mean, what was your reaction to that, and what did you think?
Yeah, my reaction was I wasn't surprised at all. Obviously you're not hoping for more people coming forward or more victims, but in my research and my experience, it's very rarely is it a one-off case. And as well as timelines, right? Like timelines, everyone's timeline is different. People, I think a lot of, who knows how many people Brad Aldrich including on the Blackhawks, were affected by his behavior. But, some people might have looked at Kyle Beach and how he came forward and the strength he had is talking for all of them, right? And then, like I said, timelines are different. People have different triggers in life. Sometimes that's having a child of your own. Sometimes that's, whatever, just moments in life. You could lose your job, or you could, lose somebody, your parent or something. And these feelings come back, and that can be a trigger to come forward and do something or say something. Again, my heart breaks for the whole situation, and it's sad to see another person come forward, but I think it's important too. I think it's important for people to have their say, to handle it the way they want to handle it. And in this case, that means filing another lawsuit and holding Brad Aldrich, accountable. It's you look at the league side of things, I don't know. I don't think the Chicago Black, like you said, there's no one really left or anyone left from that regime. I don't think there's there's not going to be another investigation coming forward here about it. I'm sure in that investigation or other investigations that they probably already knew there were other people, but just maybe weren't ready to come forward. So, I'm kind of talking in circles now here, but it is, again, it's not surprising. It is sad, but it also is important, to support that person. I know they're anonymous, but just, know that what they're going through is a very difficult situation, and all the strength it took to actually get to this point. And with these cases, you're going to need more strength that comes with, going through this process. So yeah, unfortunate, obviously, but, I am proud of the player for coming forward and speaking his truth.
Hammer, always great having you on the program. Cannot wait for what you and the fellas have cooking up daily in the Free Press as we get closer to 5:30 on Saturday afternoon. Have a good one. We'll catch up soon, pal.
Thanks, my friend. Always appreciate being on, and shout out to the commenters. You guys know you make this show.
Right on. There's the Hammer at Jeff K. Hamilton on Twitter, and all of his work you'll be reading in the Free Press leading up to a big Saturday. And speaking of Saturday, the only thing that could have made a Bomber Jet doubleheader better is the fact that we can now get Little Brown Jug at both the arena and the stadium. That is right, gang. If you're at Jet games this year, make sure to pop by Craft Beer Corner. Not only their iconic 1919 flagship brand available, but my personal favorite generic lager as well. And if you're doing the double dip, you can have a couple at the game and then head on down to IG Field. If you're at IG Field, you'll find 1919 and the local beers at the Poutineery locations and the hometown concession stands on both levels and both sides of IG Field. And of course, with the holidays just around the corner, the gift of Little Brown Jug certainly will put smiles on people's faces. Head on down, well, anywhere they sell great beer, to be honest with you, but the best place to do it, certainly Brewery and Tap Room, William Avenue. All their great merchandise is there as well, and you can definitely check them online at littlebrownjug.ca. And don't forget, follow them on their social channels for information about some Jets and Bomber watch nights at Little Brown Jug. Will they be bringing the TVs in and showing the games as well? And hey, I got to thank our friends Nick and Nikki DQ for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And they've got the 3 DQs, the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park. They'll take care of all your ice cream cake needs. If you've got a party going on, those delicious stack burgers, obviously blizzards. But speaking of Niverville, they've also just recently opened up the brand new Pita Pit in Niverville. So check out Pita Pit. Healthy, fast, delicious, fresh. But they also do great catering. So if you need catering, school lunches, party platters, anything like that, they can get it to you anywhere in the city. Find out more at Niverville at pitapitmb.ca or at Pita Pit Niverville on Insta or on X. All right, let's get Remo back in here. We will get to a little bit of audio from the Winnipeg Jets. Jets are practicing as we speak right now in Arizona. Mike McIntyre will join us tomorrow. He's been on the entire road trip, so we'll set up this finale in St. Louis tomorrow with the club. But let's quickly hear from Scotty Arniel. Arniel talked about the Adam Lowry line and the dominant performance they had, led by the hat trick from Nino Niederreiter Saturday?
Because of their hard work. They work so hard. They're real tight with the system, and then they put a lot of pressure, on the opposition, especially the defense. Big bodies that, that get in there and walk and grind, and then from there they, take over.
Reem, it is pretty amazing, the offensive production that this line has had. But, game after game, when you live in the other team's zone and create what they've been creating, results will follow. And this is the first time you kind of laid this out at the beginning of the season. You look at the scoring leaders for the Winnipeg Jets, and you've got 7 players separated by 1 point at the top of that list. And raise your hand if you had Mason Appleton tied for the team's scoring lead at this point in the season.
Yeah, definitely did not have that one. And we've talked about the Jets scoring by committee. Certainly shows that, where you have guys from the what did we say about line numbers? Like the so-called first line with Scheifele and Connor, and then you have Niederreiter and Appleton as well. And this is the graphic Money Puck tweeted out top lines for expected goals. And if you're not familiar with expected goals, it basically measures the percentage measures. Are you getting more high danger chances than your opponent? And that line ranked 4th in the league behind some other lines as well. So, we talked about how good they've been in terms of goals. Just, you want to talk about real goals, like goals for and against. It was Mike Kelly had them.
Ken's favorite, real goals.
Real goals. Eight goals on the ice for at 5-on-5 and 1 against. And that is, that's all you really need to know with that line. But they've been great, and we're looking forward to seeing what they can do as they move forward in terms of, if you do shake up the lines, I would think that line has to stay together. And here's some more Money Puck stuff showing all the lines. Money Puck had that. You see, Mike Kelly had them at 8 goals at 5-on-5, but Money Puck has them at 7-1. But there's Ehlers, Nemestikov, Perfetti. They're 3-4-3 against at 5-on-5. In such short minutes, this Connor, Scheifele, Velarde line, you wonder what could have been. They were 3-4-0 against at 5-on-5. But I follow Scheifele, Connor. They're 2-4-3 against at 5-on-5. So that Appleton, Lowry, Niederreiter line, in terms of minutes, they're the third line at 5-on-5, but they've been absolutely dynamite in terms of goals for. So, and suppressing goals too. So
yeah, gone are the days when people in the chat suggest that Adam Lowry's a 4th line center. I will say that he is. You can certainly make the argument that has been the Jets' best and most important line this season, and they certainly were on Saturday in Glendale. Mason Appleton talked after the game. Obviously, a real good vibe in the dressing room after the win, and that one goal that I described, that great passing, where I don't think Lowry even got an assist on it because he was the 4th guy to touch the puck. Josh Morrissey got involved. Appleton sets up Niederreiter, and the Jets are right back in. And Appleton just talked about the success that their line is having.
Yeah, it's been a blast. We like to go to work together, and we've managed to score some pretty nice goals, obviously. But I think it's a lot of simple, direct hockey where we can all kind of read off each other, feed off each other. We really pride ourselves in winning battles and getting first touch on pucks, and not giving up on any play. So I think when those compound, then you score. You score nice ones. You score ugly ones. Nino didn't score a goal more than a foot and a half away from the net tonight. Like, that's him just going there and being in the right spot. I thought our line did a really good job, and I thought, honestly, our team overall, we really responded and found a way to fight back in that game and then jump them in the standings.
Yeah, certainly a great response after the second goal off that Scheifele giveaway, and it was that line that was leading the way. Appleton sort of expanded a little further on the success that Nino Niederreiter, and Adam Lowry are enjoying right now.
I think we all read off each other, and we all bring a little bit different, but at the same time, we all are good at pretty similar things. I think when we work them below, the top of the circles, and win our one-on-ones and be strong on the puck in the corner and get it low to high and beat guys back to the net, like that. The Nino hat trick goal was a product of Lau's beating his guy to the net and getting a tip on it, and then Nino getting to the net and just setting it over the goal line. Like that's an easy goal to score if you're willing to do the hard things. And I think, like I said, that's what we kind of pride ourselves in. And we're gonna keep building and we're gonna keep getting better, I think.
It sounds so simple, but the success of that line is exactly what Appleton said in their first line. They are coming into every battle expecting that they're going to win. They're playing with a tenacity that allows them to do exactly that. And now they're really starting to click and getting rewarded. And some of the goals, Remis, I mean, like the one that got them back in the game, I mean, that was not your prototypical ugly, dirty goal. I mean, it was culminated by a goal from basically right in the goal mouth in front of the net. But they're showing that they've got a few maybe clubs in the bag that people didn't expect before with some of the passing that they've had on goals this season.
I actually loved, it wasn't the Niederreiter goals, but the passing with Mason Appleton's like back pass to Brendan Dillon on his second goal that he just absolutely wired off the post and in. And yeah, I mean, these guys are passing, they're going to their net, they're keeping their sticks on the ice. Like Nino just goes to the net and what Ehlers on the power play just banks it off the stick and in. Yeah, the first one too. Stick on the ice and close to the net, and you're beating your guy, and you're scoring goals. And these and I'm play this this next. I think the next clip. Mason just talks about how well they're playing, how consistent they've been throughout the season, and I think they do need to figure out some stuff on special teams. But at 5-on-5, they've played just as well as any other team. And you and I mentioned special teams was 1-1 on Saturday, so they won the even strength and won the game.
Take it.
Take it. Yeah, take it.
Appleton, I mean, listen, tied for the league in scoring, as we mentioned, 7 players at either 9 or 8 points so far. Very spread out. And Appleton just talked a little bit about this team's scoring depth as illustrated by the top of the scoring leaders in the club.
Yeah, I think, obviously we've had a lot of guys with good starts to the year. I think if you look at our entire season, we maybe have 4 periods of hockey we don't like. I think we've been very consistent. And, for all the people that love the analytics out there, I think if you look at the 5-on-5, we've been the better team a lot of nights. Obviously, our power play gets a big one. Our PK gets a good kill late. Obviously, they got the one that's 2 seconds left there. But you clean your specials up a little bit, and then we keep playing the way we are 5-on-5. We're a dang good hockey team, and we're going to win a lot of games this year.
All right, a lot of confidence from Mason Appleton, and that power play goal that went in right at the end of the Jet PK was unfortunate, but they did get one back. The power play hadn't been going, and they did. And listen, Mason Appleton has been a big part of that 5-on-5 dominance of the Lowry line. And Appleton just commented a little bit about on his personal start to the season, being tied for the lead in scoring.
Every atmosphere is different when we're on the home run. When we're at home or on the road, like our role can change a tad as a line. Yeah. But I think, we've spent so much time in the O-zone. So obviously, I get to showcase a little bit more, and I think Nino and Adam do as well. Obviously, it's a really good league, but I pride myself in, not always scoring and getting points. I think I can do a lot of other good things to help this team win. So that's kind of, the backbone of my game. And then, like I said, we've been pretty dominant offensively. So then you get to showcase a bit more. And obviously, I think I'm capable of making plays and scoring goals and getting assists. So I think our line's been great so far.
Heck of a start for Mason Appleton and that line. And, in some ways, it was almost cruel to Brendan Dillon for Nino to be the one that put that over the line and have Nino being the hat trick, because it was pretty damn close to being Brendan Dillon with the hat trick. And I don't know what the Coolbet line on that would have been, but let's just say it would have been a massive number. Dillon had a huge part in the Jets' win on Saturday, and he spoke afterwards and talked about how the Jets responded after they went down 2-0.
I think for us in our group, like, just understanding, like, it's not going to be a Picasso every 60 minutes, and there's going to be some adversity in games. Arizona's playing well. They're a good team. They got lots of skill. Off the rush, they're creating chances. We obviously saw with their first goal that they've got that talent to be able to hurt you. And for our group to understand what makes us successful, we got to our game there in the second period. Special teams, we get a big goal on the power play in the second, and some huge kills there in the third. Whatever, it was 2 seconds left on that one in the second, but something we can definitely build on. We're 10, 11 games into the season now, but just trying to get better and better every game.
2 goals and an assist, +2 for Brendan Dillon. And what did he have for shots on net? He had 3 shots on net. Neil Pionk, who I talked about, 3 shots on net. Pionk was a +3 in that game as well. And Pionk really was playing with a purpose in that game, and I think it stood out much more after reading Mike's article of what he had been going through. So we probably won't refer to this as the Brendan Dillon game, but it certainly was the Brendan and Nino show. And Dillon talked about Niederreiter's game as well after the 5-3 win.
Oh, he's just he's a bull when he gets in on the offense. He's a big body. He knows what his strengths are, and that line they forecheck, they chip pucks in, and it's no recipe. I feel like the other team knows what they're going to do, and those guys still go out there and they get the puck, they spread the zone, and I think when Nino's when he's on top of his game, he's shooting pucks, he's a goal scorer, and he's going to those dirty areas, and just happy to see him get some success and get the bounces like that.
All right, so there's Brendan Dillon, one of the stars of the show, and the Jets comeback win in Arizona to even the road trip at 1-1. They'll look to come back with 4 of 6 points tomorrow in St. Louis. Mike McIntyre will join us on the show for a full report from the road with the Winnipeg Jets. Listen, we'll get to the Coolbet lines before we get out of here in a minute. But Remo, let's quickly hit on a couple of the big NFL stories before we look at the lines for Monday Night Football. Listen, we get to the Chiefs game, the Cowboys, Eagles, Bengals, Bills. But I can't not start with the Josh Dobbs story. Absolutely incredible. A guy that was traded for on Tuesday, was scheduled to be the backup quarterback, gets called into action in the game, having never practiced, never taken a snap from the center, never thrown to any of the receivers, and authors an incredible comeback. And the Vikings win their 4th in a row. And I mentioned this to Dusty on the Lock Shop today. The Vikings social media is so good. They usually play Kevin O'Connell giving out the game balls in the room afterwards. And the scene of the game balls going out and then the last one going to Josh Dobbs and him being put on the shoulders of his teammates in the locker room was one of the coolest things I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, the stories coming out of this Vikings win with Joshua Dobbs. I mean, they're missing their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, you're missing your top receiver, and Justin Jefferson. And for him to come in after being acquired by the team earlier in the week, and as you said, had never thrown to any of these guys, never taken a snap, how they were even able to pull this off. There's video of him practicing like the cadence of doing a snap with the O-line on the sidelines, and he didn't even know like the players' names. And as I understand it, so Kevin O'Connell, like, he studied the playbook and he said he was ready, especially for that play that they ran for the game-winning touchdown. He was very familiar with the play. I mean, had never thrown to the receiver, but
in theory.
But he knew he had read the playbook, and I think what happened was Kevin O'Connell would tell him the play name, and then in the headset they went no huddle, and he would basically tell him every scenario.
Yeah. Here's a couple, just some reporting from. First of all, this is from Kevin Seifert. Josh Dobbs didn't take a single rep with the offense in practice, had not taken a snap from Garrett Bradbury, had never thrown passes to anyone, and didn't know most of their names.
Yes.
He goes, that's for next week. When it was time for Dobbs to come into the game, the offense huddled on the sideline and went through the team's 5 primary cadences. That was the first time he'd gone through it with the rest of the offense. And he said he was not afraid to tell people what he didn't know. Jordan Addison said that meant coming into the huddle and saying, okay, what do I have on this side? And we were telling him, everyone that was letting him know. And this was a piece from Alec Lewis. Josh Dobbs said that Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell was essentially translating calls and mapping out plays mid-huddle as the play clock was ticking down. KOC called Dobbs' ability to handle it all one of the most impressive things he's seen in his career. Just an amazing win for Minnesota, and to do it after a lot of people thought that season was over with the really unfortunate injury to Kirk Cousins. So the Vikes get a big win. Chiefs held on in Frankfurt yesterday morning. 21 early points, no points in the second half. Miami pushing back, but for all the concern about the Chiefs offense, which is still top 5 in the league, it's the Chiefs defense that is night and day from what it's been at any point in the Mahomes era. And this is a team now, Remis, that can, win in a shootout, but they can also take a high-octane team like Miami and really squeeze them for the better part of 60 minutes. Miami with the team-high 7 punts in the game yesterday. And the Dolphins now 0-3 against teams with winning records. So still some questions as to how they can handle with how they can hang with the big boys in the AFC.
Yeah, funny, all those concerns about the Chiefs offense, and they rank what in the league there? And they don't really have a number one wide receiver. I mean, Kelsey's the number one receiver, but got a kind of hodgepodge bunch of guys there. And for Miami, certainly interesting when you mentioned the record against teams with teams with the winning records. They have this explosive offense that's shown up at times, but what certainly wasn't there yesterday. And gotta be honest, I did enjoy us. This game should be a primetime game. This is 2 elite teams, and normally I'm anti these Europe games at 9 a.m., but an 8:30 start was pretty incredible, and I did see the ratings for that game in KC. 94% of the households in KC were tuned into that one. What else are you going to do 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday after the time change?
Everybody else was at the game. It was a Chiefs home game in Frankfurt. I had some friends that actually made the trip over there and were sending me some pictures. It looked like just an amazing atmosphere. But BA and a few people doubting the Chiefs. I will say this. You know what you're going to get. And you know that Patrick Mahomes in the big moments is Patrick Mahomes. But a defense like that at a championship level, I think gives me as much optimism as I've had for a Chiefs team in a long time, a team that has won 2 Super Bowls with it. For Tanny's in the chat, dropping the Raider logos. Big win over Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants. Thank God I didn't spend much time watching that game. That was pretty ugly. I was watching in the late slate, though, that Eagles-Cowboys game, which was a bizarre game in so many ways. Like, if you're Dallas getting on that plane, you're wondering, how the hell did we lose? Philly did so many things in the last 3-4 minutes to let them back in the game and give them opportunity after opportunity, and it just didn't happen. And when you think about falling short by about an inch on that 4th down gamble in the 4th quarter that resulted in a turnover on downs and giving the Philly the ball back at the 1, and then Dak Prescott inexplicably going out of bounds on the 2-point convert, just basically losing track of where he was. Those are some big points left on the board, and yet there was Dallas with the ball in the final seconds of the game, still in a threat to score a touchdown and win the game.
Yeah, I was shocked they got that extra chance there at the end. And, you look at the stats, I think Dallas, outgained? They outgained the Eagles in terms of total yards, in terms of passing yards, didn't throw an interception, and, they still lost. And, some key sacks there, I think, that Dak took at the end. You mentioned stepping out of bounds as well, but it's almost a bit of a head scratcher where, you have CeeDee Lamb with this all-time performance. Dak's throwing 3 touchdowns, no picks, 374 yards. You think that, CeeDee Lamb's got almost 200 receiving, 191. You think this is the recipe that Dallas needs to win, but somehow they still lost. And there's the Eagles at 8-1. And I think there's some concern for Jalen Hurts. He got hit in the game and it was slow to get up. And he's been playing with a knee brace. But hey, as long as he's in, they definitely have a shot. And not the craziest. I mean, he had 207 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but the ground game for sure helped them with DeAndre Swift and Hurts using his legs as well.
The craziest play was there when they had the ball back with like 2 minutes left or whatever, and they're just trying to get a first down to win the game. Handed it off to DeAndre Swift, and Swift got smoked in the head by A.J. Brown, who was running motion. And I said to Dusty earlier today, I mean, if that hit was a defensive player on Swift, he's getting 15 yards for a headshot. Like it almost looked like it knocked him out for a moment. They were so fortunate to get on that football, still ended up punting it, and it still went down to it. Heck of a game. I didn't see First Take today, but I will have to go and get back and see what Stephen A. had to say. He's always extra funny when the Cowboys lose. By the way, hey, we got 164 likes. We got well over 300 here. We topped over 400. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't. Let's see if we can get that to 200 by the end of the day. Speaking of the end of the day, I see Winnipeg Walter all fired up in the chat, and he should be. The Bengals are most definitely back. Great, speaking of defense, great defensive performance, really shutting down Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. And I thought the Bills' defense played their asses off to keep them in that game. But Joey Burr is back. As a Chiefs guy, he is the one quarterback that scares the hell out of me more than anybody else who could be on the other side from Patrick Mahomes. And yet, Remis, they're still technically last place in the NFC North, although in a playoff spot right now. The Bengals trending in the right direction after a huge primetime win over the Bills.
Wow, that is crazy. 5-3, tied with the Steelers, Browns, Steelers and Browns. I mean, how are the Steelers doing this? I mean, it's pretty clear. Has Joe Burrow not healthy to start the season? He had that calf injury in preseason, and now we can actually step up and push off. Was surprised to see Jamar Chase held to so few yards yesterday by the Bills defense, but it was T. Higgins showing some strong hands on a lot of those catches, leading the way. And yeah, Joe Burrow, I mean, his record against the Bills and the Chiefs, two of the top teams of the AFC the last couple of years in playoffs and non-playoffs, been very good. So watch out for Joe Burrow. It appears that, yes, he is back, as everyone has been writing in the chat today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get to the Coolbet lines here to finish up. Monday Night Football this evening, Chargers and Jets. This game had been 3.5. It is now 3. And the Chargers are a 3-point favorite at -119. Jets at even money at +101. Wouldn't mind getting this to actually 3.5, to be honest. I think this is going to be a field goal game. Let's see my favorite bet, the over 3.5 field goals, +110. Listen, I don't want to call something free money because there's no such thing, but let's just say I will be on that, and I will expect to see at least 4 field goals in this game tonight. We do have a lock shop partner parlay that we put together today. Jets +3.5, Garrett Wilson 6 receptions, and Breece Hall 20+ receiving yards. I think we've hit 3 of the last 4 on these primetime games, so we'll be getting in on that. And Patty put together his primetime parlay, over 3.5 field goals, Garrett Wilson 50+ yards receiving, and Joey Bosa 1 sack. That one is at +415. There's 4 games in the NHL tonight. Blue Jackets and Panthers in Sunrise. Panthers -226 faves. Blue Jackets +190. The Leafs coming off giving up a half dozen to the Buffalo Sabres on Saturday night. Leafs -152 favorites. Tampa +129. Great matchup in Dallas between the Bruins and the Stars. Stars -140 faves. Boston +119. And in maybe the most interesting matchup of the night, the Oilers get another crack at the Canucks after getting waxed 8-1 to start the season, and maybe that was some foreshadowing of what was to come for Edmonton. They have been terrible so far this season. Lost at home to Nashville on the weekend. 0-2 against Vancouver on the season. Canucks even money, and the Edmonton Oilers a slight -117 favorite. I don't know why the Oilers are favorites based on what they've done so far this season, but it just seems like you're waiting for this team to break out. as I mentioned to you before, talking with Dusty, the nasty chat was quite live today in Edmonton after another home loss for the Oilers. What an ugly start for a team that most people thought would be contending for the Cup.
Yeah, it's not going well for them, Hustle. They're allowing a lot of goals. Their big guns aren't performing like they have in the past. Definitely a lot of concern there. I don't know, is Jay Woodcroft is on the hot seat there, or were they looking to make an acquisition? But it's pretty clear they haven't really addressed the defense. They got Ekholm, not enough, and in terms of depth on forward, not there. And McDavid, is he still banged up since getting tangled with Josh Morrissey? But you look at, the Oilers, not going well in Alberta. The Oilers in flames. Here's the Oilers 2-7-1, 5 points in 10 games, -14 goal differential. That's pretty bad. And they're playing against Vancouver tonight, who's got the inverse record, 8-2-1, +26 goal differential. Now I think part of that is inflated by their 10-1 win last week against San Jose.
And their 8-1 season opening win against these Oilers.
Well, and that's against the Oilers, so that's kind of funny. I'm curious what happens. You think the Oilers have to snap out of not going to be this bad throughout the year, and does Vancouver fall back a bit to earth crazy? Compared how these teams were last year to what they are now, and it's a lot of the similar rosters.
It is. Anyways, we had a great chat. If you came in late, great chat with John Shannon talking Jets and then getting his thoughts on the situations in Edmonton and Calgary, Ottawa, and Toronto and whatnot. Again, so those are our Coolbet lines today. Don't forget, if you haven't played at Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit. Hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200. Folks, don't forget our Movember continues. Get on over to winnipegsports.com and click the link, or click the link in the description of this video. If you can support all our WSTers that are growing mows, we'll get an update from the fellas a little later on this week, or about halfway through. And by the way, did you put any more kilometers towards the 60 km goal, Reem?
Yeah, so we're doing Movember. The link, if you want to donate, is on our website, winnipegsportstalk.com, at the top. And I passed on growing the mustache. I got to do 60 kilometers. I took the weekend off, so I'm going to have to get on it and do some extended runs this week. So link in the description, or winnipegsportstalk.com. I see Lane Janis. He's also running. But I'm looking forward to seeing the Mo updates. I see Julian in chat, Derek Honer,
Julian will have a good one for sure.
Chris Nielsen's done a great job fundraising as well. Shout out to Mike Lindbergh, Stephen Ostash, some nice job, David Asplund as well. Even I think it was Rod Peterson donated to David Asplund, who's on the WST team. So
right on. We'll have to get Rod on, talk about these finals maybe sometime later on this week, see what he's got to say about that. Anyways, great show tonight. Enjoy the Monday Nighter, everybody. And make sure to join us tomorrow when we will be all over the latest on the Bombers as they continue their preparation for the West Final. And Mike McIntyre in St. Louis with all the latest news and notes on the Winnipeg Jets from the morning skate and the road trip so far before the Jets drop the puck tomorrow night against the St. Louis Blues. Thanks again to all the sponsors that make this show happen every day. If you haven't already and you're with us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Podcast listeners, thanks so much. Tell a friend about WST, where they can find us and how they can subscribe. And enjoy the Monday Nighter. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, getting ready for the Jets and Blues. Thanks for hanging with us today, gang.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.